I'm going to be creating kind of like what you would call a parallel universe here. I want to make a setup where the CRUD will be using object-oriented mysqli commands instead of the commands found in this file right here, this one. And in the web directory, I'll have a separate page, at least for testing this alternate universe that I have. The first thing is I'm going to create, or I just created, a file called mysqli-connect.php. It's one word, and don't forget the I between the two words. This file is in the includes directory, and it's going to end up being comparable to this one, except this one uses the old way of doing things, which is not object-oriented and does not use prepared statements or transactions. So this is what the old file looks like. It's a definition of a class called MySQL database. The file I'm creating right now, is probably not going to have a class definition. Well, we'll just have to wait and see what it has in it. And I'm also going to rely on some constants which are defined in config.php. Yeah, including the database login information and some paths which will be predefined. And I may also need something equivalent to initialize.php for this alternate universe. The file that I've created, which is comparable to initialize.php, is init UDZ. That stands for underdog zone. Inside of mysqli connect.php, I have this line which creates a new database connection object. But I don't want to have to supply the login all from things which are visible in this file. So I'm going to try to find a way to have the same config.php, the old one, included before we get to this point so that the constants are already established. So the first thing I did is I added a file to the web directory, which is the web root, called testmysqli.php. That'll be like my index page. So inside of it, I'm going to include this file, init udz.php, just like this. And then in init udz.php, I'm going to require config.php. The constants which we define in config.php are environment, to be development or production. We define proj root to be the root folder of the project. Then we define these constants, which are the credentials for logging into the database. The only difference that I see between our parallel universe and the real universe is that init UDZ has just require config.php, whereas initialize.php has require config.php, and then it creates the database object or the database connection object right here, whereas we don't do that in init UDZ. However, now that I look in here, let's include this also. We'll include that in init UDZ. Initialize the session and message. Okay, is there anything else we would like to include? Okay, let's include the web directory and the logs directory. All right, so it would be good to also have all of these. What's this? Load basic functions. Hey, that would be good too. Why not load the auto loading stuff? Okay, so I'm gonna copy these also. So let's put those over here. Okay, so the only thing that's strategically missing from init UDZ, which is in initialize.php, is the stuff related to creating the database connection. In our case, in our parallel universe, what's going to happen is that is going to be included in mysqli connect.php instead. That's where we're going to set up the database connection. So this is what init UDZ looks like. The one other thing I see missing from here is any place where we load the files which define the classes. But I guess in my old project, it was all being taken care of with this, the SPL autoloader, and this function here, which is defined in functions.php. So I think I'll be okay. And this video has been long, so I'm just going to end it right here.